Howdy. Today I'm doing this from, well, I'm in the car. I'm sitting in a big parking lot and no one's around me. I got the windows open. I'm not exactly sure how the sound is going to work out, but we're going to give this a shot. So this is now the fourth video I'm doing about the topic of blogging, and we're almost done. I said I was going to do 5, and I'm going to do 5, and I'm back to doing 4 tips. I haven't figured out how I'm going to title this yet, but just go with me here. So let's look at the 5 that I mentioned last time. We started talking about SEO, or search engine optimization. We talked a little bit about blog post length. I don't know why I keep saying we, it's just me. Anyway, we talked about blog post length, talked about editing your blogs, spellings and stuff like that. We talked about images and talked about internal links and backlinks. That's what the last one was. And obviously I'm going to link to that post. So today we're going to talk about 4 new things. And this is past the point of being brand new. This is stuff that sometimes long-term bloggers forget to do some of these things. And, if you've been blogging a year, maybe this is something that you haven't really considered, a year or 2 or whatever. So I'm going to cover these points now. And if you, like I said, if you're new, these are things that you need to think about long-term, because you really need to jump on these as soon as you can. So the first one is comments. And this is one of my biggest gripes, is that people do not respond to comments on their blogs. Matter of fact, some people decide not to even accept comments. And if you're a big name, I can see you doing that. If you've been blogging for a while and you've been getting a lot of attention, you're seen everywhere else, then I can understand you maybe not even accepting comments. But if that's not you, you need to accept comments. You need to reply to comments. One of the things that happens, people are we're kind of superficial. We'll just tell it like it is. A lot of people will visit a blog, never see any comments, and say, well, this can't be worth anything because no one's ever left a comment, and they leave. But what sometimes happens is that early on, people are leaving comments, the blog owner doesn't respond to any, and people stop. I stop. I check out every comment that I leave. I keep a file of them. And if people don't respond to my comments or anyone else's, I don't go back. I never go back. I'll never share it again. And you know what? You just lost someone who's used to sharing things and commenting on things. So that's a big deal. Now you also have to decide how you want people to comment. For instance, I use WordPress, and I use the traditional commenting system of WordPress. Some people like to use this thing called Discuss. There's a place called, or another one called Intense Debate, or something like that. Some people like to add CAPTCHA, CAPTCHA. There's different forms of that. I hate that mess. Some people moderate everything. Some people moderate some. I don't really moderate, and I'm saying that, but the truth is I actually do. There's certain words and there's certain areas of the world that I actually do moderate. I have my filters set up because I get tons of spam. I mean, I've been blogging for 12 years now. So I get tons of spam, and I hate having to look through every single bit of that. So some of that stuff, it just says, okay, let it be automated. But I go through the spam filter, and if it's a legitimate comment, then I release it and then I respond to it. Sometimes you just have to do stuff like that. But it's, like I said, it's not intentional. Someone who's a long-term blogger, they're coming through. It's going to be fine. Most people are going to get through fine. If someone does not have what we call a gravatar or an avatar, most probably it's going to spam first, and then I got to pull it out. If you're using a Gmail or Yahoo email address, which I talked about in a previous video, then most probably you're going to spam first. That's just how that is. But you really need to decide how you're going to handle comments, because that could be a big driver of your blog, especially if you're new. Next, let's talk about niche versus non-niche blogs versus what kind of niche. The people who make tons of money from blogging will say, well, you need to have a niche, and you need to stick to your niche, and you need to be tight with your niche. And that sounds fine, but it's not necessarily accurate, and it's not necessarily beneficial. For instance, if you're an accountant and all you write about are accounting ideas, well, you know what? You're going to run out of stuff to write about really fast. It's just not much about accounting itself that people besides accountants are going to read. And it, you reach a certain point. There's only so much. Bookkeeping, statistics checking, taxes. Okay, now what? However, if you figure out a way to branch out into other topics that are related somehow to accounting, well, okay, now you have a shot. So now you can talk about budgeting, you can talk about money planning, you can talk about healthcare planning, you can talk about all sorts of things. That is still being a specific niche, but you have not refined yourself so much that you don't have anything to write about. And trust me, the example I use often is someone had asked me years ago if I could write for a blog talking about forensic loan analysis, which is an accounting thing. And trust me, I was able to write 3 articles. 2 of them I didn't think were all that good. And after that, I said, I got nothing. I just have nothing. Because there's nothing to branch off of that. Had they allowed me to talk a lot about mortgages and maybe just loans in general, whatever, then maybe. But forensic loan, yeah. And go look that up if you want to know what that is, because, boy, that was a tough one. But it was needed during the time period that I was being asked to do it. So there you go. You have to really, think about that deeply. For instance, I'm just sharing. I write about blogging and I write about social media. I write about, writing, WordPress. I talk about a little bit technology. You know what? I talk about a lot of things on that blog. It's not necessarily niched, drastically. I hit my main topics most of the time, but I've been known to go off. I talk about diabetes because I'm diabetic. I will talk about healthcare because I'm a healthcare finance consultant. Not often, but I'll do that. On my business blog, which is called Mitch's blog, by the way, I talk about leadership and diversity and customer service. All of that is related. I also talk about healthcare finance, once again, as a consultant. So I talk about all those things, but not just geared towards people who are in the medical industry. I talk about things that are geared towards the regular folks also, things they need to check on their bills and things like that. It's all related, and it helps to reinforce what it is that I do in business. So that's one of those things you have to think about, especially if you're looking to promote yourself. If you're not looking to promote yourself, you can talk about anything you want to. Next thing we want to talk about is having a consistent blog schedule and setting up your blog frequency. And this is the same that they say about YouTube videos, is that you want to have some kind of time frame where people know when they can expect to see something. If you're writing something once a week, then that's fine, because people start to expect something once a week. If you need to skip a week, that's okay. But if you're all over the place, one time you start writing, you're writing once a week, and then all of a sudden it's once every 3 months, you throw your audience off. They don't know what to expect. And I got to tell you the truth, if you're writing once every 3 months, unless you're writing a 20,000 word article, people are going to leave. People are not going to come back. And actually, if you're writing a whole bunch of 20,000 word articles and it's not a story, they're not going to come back anyway. So you need to decide, what can you keep up with? How do you want to engage the people who are coming to your blog? And this is important. Now, later on, when you're really big, you might decide, okay, I can take a little bit more time off, a little bit more of a break. But in general, you need to set something up. People will talk about having a blog calendar. I don't go that route, but people will talk about things like that. So, for instance, on I'm Just Sharing, I basically release an article every Monday. On Mitch's blog, it's every Wednesday. On this channel, except for this series right now, I usually do 1 video a week, and on my other channel, it's 1 video a week. And that's usually my thing. However, when I first started, I was writing 300 articles a year, not a month. 300 a year. I got my first 1,000 articles on I'm Just Sharing in less than 4 years. Oh my God. I was really putting out a lot of stuff. That's just how it goes. But it's something to think about. What can you keep up with? I mean, you know what? You probably, if you're going to use that as your business, you're going to want to write more often, because the more articles you have, then the more traffic you get. But you also want to you want to have something to say. And if you have nothing to say and you just one day say, I just decided to throw something up here because I wanted to get something and now I'm done, that ain't going to cut it. So, like I said, you have to consider your audience, but you have to consider what you can do as well. And the last thing I want to talk about are plugins, because there's tons of plugins. Some are necessary, some aren't. Some are definitely helpful. Some might be helpful, but they don't work for everybody. For instance, you need to secure your blog early on. So I use a plugin called Limit Login Attempts Reloaded. Basically, what that says is if someone is trying to brute force my blog, by sending out their little bots and trying to figure out my username and password, they get 3 shots and then it shuts them down for basically a week. And then if they try it again, it shuts them down for 6 months. It just does. And it's a great thing because people are always having their blogs hacked. Mine, if they're sending something out, you're probably never going to hack into it because I make sure I'm not so big on the usernames. I should be, but I'm very big on passwords. My passwords are long and some of them are complicated. So if you're sending your brute force thing, it's going to probably take you more years to break into my site than I expect to be alive. I hate to say it that way, but if I say that I expected to be alive when I was 20, then that lets you know that's a long time. But you need to have something like that. You need to think about a caching program. And basically what that does is it just flushes out garbage because WordPress tends to save a whole lot of stuff. And you have these things, they help you out. You need to think about, like I mentioned WP Smush when I was talking about images. You need something like that because it helps you to keep your images smaller. It helps to keep your website moving faster. You need to think of something like WP Touch. If you haven't bought one of those themes that tells you it's mobile friendly, then WP Touch will make your site mobile friendly, which means it'll help it to move faster when people are using phones. Because according to what I've been reading, they're saying that more searches and more visits are happening by phone now than by computer. I don't get it. I'd rather be on my computer because I need stuff big. But that's just me. But you also have to make sure you don't have too many plugins. I know people who have 50, 60 plugins, and what happens, of course, is they start fighting each other, and then they slow everything down. Or you have plugins that are obsolete. A recommendation that I read somewhere said that if you have a plugin that hasn't been updated in a couple of years, you should probably think about getting rid of it. I did some of that. I actually wrote an article about it, and then I did it, where I went through and I found some plugins to replace ones that I was using that were updated. One that I'm still using is actually called Comment Love, which I love. If you ever visit the blog, imjustsharing.com, you will see that I have something down there where if you have a blog and you leave a comment, and it gives you an opportunity to link back to one of your blog posts, which is kind of neat. It's always been neat. However, the guy who created it, he's been sick, so he hasn't updated the premium. However, they did update the regular Comment Love, so that has worked out well, finally. So maybe they'll update the premium one day, who knows. Anyway, it's another thing to think about, and just, like I said, way too many will slow your site down. They may start conflicts, you may start having issues, and making sure that you have those few that are going to protect you and help enhance your blog are crucial. Anyway, that's today's blog tips, whatever. Got one more of these coming, and probably I'm going to do it from home. This has been fun sitting in the car doing this, but the last one's probably going to be right from my home office. My name is Mitch Mitchell. If you've enjoyed this, please like, please subscribe, hit that bell. I'm supposed to do that. I need to remember to do that every single time. Y'all take care.